Well, hello, teacher recruits. We are back with Dr. Linda Michelle Barron. So welcome back, Dr. Barron.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Our topic today is on family engagement, and we are going to conduct a simple interview for you all
Okay.
to give you some information that you can use as you move forward in your exploration of education, of an educational career. So, Dr. Barron, would you please start out by sharing with us what is family engagement in education?
I think that comes in a number of ways. Sometimes we just think about parents being engaged if they come to the schools, if you
Mhm.
see them on parent nights, or if they're around the school community often. But I also think family engagement is how families support the learning experience. And there's a lot of support that needs to be done at home. In my home, I was supported. I had books around me. I had my parents conversed with me. I guess for the young recruits, they conversated. But anyway, we had discussions, and we that, that was ways that they really engaged. Even my mother's and father's friends that we called aunts and uncles, they would give books and give us other kinds of learning toys and games. That's, to me, family engagement. So we had and then, of course, if I had any needs, or my brother, they would have tutors. And so although you might only see them on parent evenings, they both worked. And sometimes you see one or the other, or sometimes I was blessed to have both.
Mhm.
That was not an indication of how engaged they were. So, in answer to your question, I think family engagement is an operative word. It is the family, and the engagement does not have to only be what we see happening in the school itself.
I certainly appreciate that definition, and I think about as we hear the language around partnering with families, one of the things that we certainly, as educators, need to ask our families is, what kind of things do you do to support your child at home? Because I think so many times we will jump, especially if we're dealing with a more difficult population, to the assumption that they're not doing it, and there are parents that are out there holding down two jobs, single parenting and putting the books in the table, making sure the kids get the homework done, all of those sorts of things. And that is how they are supporting. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
So, thinking along that line of how family engagement is in education, what are some of the benefits that we have when we have our parents, our families, our communities engaged in our schools?
I wish I could sing, because I'd sing "Getting to Know You." It is so important to get to know your students. And what better way than to have interactions with their parents, or know, or bring the parents into the learning experience. You get to know more about who's in front of you by knowing. You get connection to their, not only their community, their culture, maybe language supports that they may be providing for their parents, or parents could be providing for them. How siblings can help. I mean, when you really look at the benefits of this kind of family engagement, the depth of knowledge that you can support, but how you can support them because of your depth of knowledge, how you can teach better.
Mm.
Really, as a teacher, you can teach better the more you know about the family. And if you know about the family, you know about the community.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So, what are some strategies for schools to use to increase family engagement?
You know what? I think we need to think outside the box. I've seen some schools, and you may have as well, where they have, it's almost like a pajama party at night. It's in the evening. I've seen that. It was just fun. The parents are invited, the children come. If a parent can't come, they can send someone, a surrogate, to be with their child, or maybe a parent will team up with a few children, and they read books to each other. Or the child will read it to the parent, or the surrogate, whoever's there, the grandparent, whomever, even an older sibling.
Mm.
it would read back, or the parent would read back to the children. Sometimes it's something, I know they often think of these potluck meals for cultural diversity. I don't see that as the answer to bringing the culture per se, but it does make community when you feed each other and you talk with each other through the language of food. I think that is a wonderful way for parents who may not even feel as comfortable in a school situation to find themselves engaged. And I do want to address that issue of sometimes parents don't come to the school because they don't feel comfortable there. If we don't make the school, you talk about strategies. Number one, make the school a place where they want to come, or they welcome to come. Sometimes who you have, if I'm assuming you'd have security guards. When the first person they see is a security guard, how are they welcome there? When they go to the office, how does the secretary welcome them? Do they have some way of communicating if they don't speak the same language as the language of the school? Though that is just basics. And so we look at these out of the box strategies, absolutely, but sometimes we really overlook the basic strategy of just giving love to whomever's entering that building.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much. It makes
There are
me
more
think.
strategies. Let me just
Yeah,
say,
go for it.
I'm not going to give all of them. No, I'm just saying those are a couple of things. I think
Yes.
more than giving a lot, I think I would use homework as a strategy of engaging parents. You know what? Not homework where the child has to have the parent help them with their math, science, or something. But you know what? Having children have to interview their parents, or maybe make a collage together and bring that in. There's ways to have them engaged through even creative use of assignments that we give that are fun, not the stuff that frightens, and not that fun stuff. Or,
Right.
you have to go to the supermarket. You have to take your parent to the supermarket, and you see if you can work out how much the food costs before you get to the cash register. Fun stuff like that.
Yes. I
So
love that.
yeah, yeah.
No, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm just saying, thinking outside of the box of ways that even as teachers, so sometimes we're talking about the whole school, we as individual teachers can't mandate what the school does, but we can help encourage. We can say, do some things in our classrooms. We can welcome parents, not that we want them there all the time, because sometimes they may be there. We'll talk about that perhaps later, but we do want them to feel that when they come, they're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that goes to my next question, which is one that even when I was a building principal, I had to try to refashion. So I'm just a thought that I had to refashion. So I would just love for you to speak to this, because we think of our schools as, public school teachers, especially as our schools as these public institutions. And so we were casually, I say casually, using the words, we have an open door policy and our parents can come anytime that they want. So do you think that's an effective approach for engaging parents?
It's interesting. I think it should be a welcome door policy, not an open door policy. Parents sometimes would take the open door policy to mean when they want to they have a concern about their child, or they can just show up at the school. You need to have quality time to discuss some issues, not so they can't just show up for those issues. Some parents with an open door policy think, well, they go to the class, and if the child is out of order, they're going to help us by beating their child in front of the class.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen in an open door policy. So we want to make it clear that they are welcome. And if they can come to watch what's going on. They can maybe make an appointment for another time if they want to sit down with us. I think that also when you look at the idea of the open door policy, you want to make sure that there's safety issues sometimes too. So, but making sure that they feel welcome. I guess that's a repeated refrain, but I would be cautious of just saying, we have an open door policy per se.
And I like that because even as I was reframing my thought process as an administrator and being a person who's totally comfortable in schools my whole life, which is why I became an educator, and thinking about my parents back then who weren't as comfortable, I did have to sit down with my staff and we did have to talk about what does it mean when we welcome a parent? What are some ways that they can know that they're welcome that we can specifically do and even tell them so that they know what it looks like when they're doing different things. So they're not feeling like we're creating barriers for them, but that we're actually inviting them in. But we have, like you said, we have the safety of the organization, the school, the kids, all the kids to be concerned with. So,
right. And yeah, one of the things I think too, sometimes when they come in, if they see something and you're in a lesson or in the middle of a lesson, they may not know the context of the lesson. They may see their child is writing and the spelling is wrong and you're accepting it. And so, you can't discuss that with them necessarily when they're there at that point. So we want to frame it. We want to have time. If they're going to come, can we discuss something with them at another time that gives some insight into what they might have seen or observed?
Wonderful, thank you. So we've been talking about the parent and the community side, but and you've mentioned this a little bit, but what's in it for the teacher when parent involvement increases?
You know what? I think there's a trust that takes place, that when parents trust who the teacher is, that's only can be built up if the parent knows the teacher. If they just hear, well, my teacher said to do this, my teacher said you got to do that, and you're doing this wrong. I mean, that may not be what we've said, but that's what's been translated to the parent. So there can be walls built up. But when the parents get to know us, and they can only know that when they come to the school or through what we're doing, maybe assignments that we're giving that are fun and engaging, they get to trust us. And I think there's a real benefit when we have, and when the parents support us through their child, we're going to get better results in the classroom.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most if I had to do my career all over again, one of the most underappreciated aspects is the building of trust. I just don't think we talk enough about it in education, and it's how we give people the benefit of the doubt. It's how we get things done. It's how we work well together. So thank you so much for raising that.
I learned it one time. I had my little second grade, and I thought I was a loving, caring teacher, but I said, George, we're online. Well, come on, George. And I heard this voice, this booming, George, 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 is always George. It was his mother. And he'd only been in second grade, but through kindergarten, first grade, and second, it was George, George on the other side, in the side of what he was doing wrong. I was caught just saying I hadn't done all the other things that she had done. But what that did for me is to say, I have to really think about how my words and my ways of interaction builds trust with the parents if they were to come by in any time, in any way, to have that kind of understanding that what we're doing is through care. So now I make it my business when I taught to call the parent up, not even when, to tell them, they're doing really well. What are you doing at home? They're doing some great things. That's a way of building trust too. Catching the children, doing what's right, and then communicating that with the parents. That's another way to build trust. So
Oh, thank you. It makes me think about my daughter who's went through school and was never the child, which I can't say for my son, but she was never the child that the teachers called. But in her whole 13 years, kindergarten through 12th grade, one teacher, Mr. Mark Supa, called to say what a great job she was doing. Here I am now, all these years later, and I remember that. And, to make that call initially, when there's not a problem, just to see, let the parent know that you see that child, that's so powerful and so impactful on me. I remember that day. He made my day, and I'm still talking about it 15 years later. You
just said it was like Avatar. I see you.
Yes.
Dean, I see you.
Yes.
I don't know if it was in the interview or after our last interview. Did I talk about the young man who I told him when I was doing a workshop how he was engaging in claps, doing drumming and whatnot, but he had such great rhythm. Did I say that?
You did, and his mother did not even want to buy into it when you called her because she was so used to the negative.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
that's one that stays with me as a real powerful and compelling reason for us to engage with our parents if we want them to engage with us and supporting their children.
Thank you, thank you. So we're coming to the end here. So I really want to
Oh,
know: is there anything else that we should have asked you that we didn't, or any other nuggets you want to give us before we part?
yeah, I would love for us to think of ways to get parents to visit with us, and maybe, and I know it's hard and there's safety issues, to be able to visit with them. If there's some way that, to come, not to snoop or not to feel that, we have to talk about your child, but just to maybe just like you would a friend, and make friends out of not all the family maybe, but some of them, because word spreads. If you make an open invitation, I'm glad to come. And I guess for safety reasons, you wouldn't come by yourself, of course. I know that. But the word spreads that you're someone who reaches out. Um, I think if we just share and model with parents how to read with their child, and how important, if there was one thing I'd like to leave with us, is just whenever we see a parent, I don't care if it's kindergarten up through high school. I don't know what the ages are of the pre-service teachers and the educators that you're working with. But if we could just let parents know what a gift it is to have your children read to you and for you to read to your child, that would be the one thing I'd want to leave with today.
Dr. Barron, thank you so, so very much for helping us with this engagement model, for bringing your wisdom to the table and your years of experience. We so, so very much appreciate you. And on behalf of the teacher recruits, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will let you know where we land once we're all done with this, okay?
I'm looking to see it. I want to know. I want to see it. And thank you for letting me put on my earring.
Of course.
Wait,
I understand the importance of the earring.
and please tell your interns to dress professionally for your parents and children. That's important.
All right,
That
you all.
look
All
like
right.
a professional. It doesn't necessarily mean earrings, but it helps.
It helps. All right.